From the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Good morning, everyone. Tuesday, March 16th, 2021. I am James Azar with your Practitioner Brief here on the CyberHub podcast. We are live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Thank you for all of those tuning in. You can comment and make sure to subscribe and follow us on your favorite social media platform. If you're listening after the fact, when we post this on your favorite podcast listening platform, make sure to subscribe and give us a 5-star rating, and make sure to share this podcast with your friends and colleagues as well. Today's show is supported by our friends over at Wistic. Tomorrow is the day, folks. Tomorrow, we run the CISO Conversation webinar, 3 p.m. Eastern. Chris Roberts, Nick Sorensen, and Gray Meyer-Gleaves and myself will all be discussing how do we create transparency and partnerships within the supply chain. The bad guys talk and communicate a lot better than we do. And so how do we fix it? We're going to address some of the more pressing challenges with that topic. And I urge you to sign up. The description is in the show notes. And as well, if you're watching us right now live, it's right in the description. It's right there. Just click the link, register right now to be part of that. Even if you can't attend, register. That way you'll get the recording after the fact as well. The webinar is supported by our friends over at Wistic again. So shout out to those guys. Before we get started on today's show, we have a few things to talk about, including the Google 0-day on Chrome, Swiss police make an arrest, and I'm kind of torn up about it. I don't know how I feel yet. Hackers have found a creative way to hide stolen credit card data, and we'll do a Microsoft Exchange update as well as the fallout continues there. But before we do that, our ceremonial coffee sip and our almost tribute to the master of all coffee sips, Scott Adams. So cheers to everyone. All right, lovely Tuesday morning. Let's get right into what's happening right now in the cybersecurity world. A Chrome 0-day has been disclosed. It's the third Chrome in the third month of it's the third Google Chrome 0-day flaw to be disclosed so far this year. We're only in March, folks. So the vulnerability itself in Chrome that's actually under active attack as we speak is the third 0-day flaw. If exploited, the flaw could allow remote code execution and denial of service attacks on affected systems. The vulnerability exists in Blink, which is the browser's engine for Chrome, developed as part of the Chromium project. Browser engines convert HTML documents and other web pages resources into the visual representation viewable to end user. The stable channel has been updated to 89.0.4389.90 for Windows, Mac, and Linux, which will roll out in the coming days and weeks, according to Google. The flaw, which is marked as CVE 2021-2119-3, ranks 8.8 out of 10 on the CVSS vulnerability rating scale, making it a high severity. It's a use after free vulnerability, which relates to incorrect use of dynamic memory during program operation. If after freeing a memory location, a program does not clear the pointer to the memory, an attacker can use the error to hack the program, according to a description of the vulnerability. This is the third 0-day flaw for Google. So here's a few things. One, we are noticing that this is becoming a trend in 2021 0 days. Microsoft Exchange, Google Chrome with its third. Microsoft Exchange had 4 in total, which we'll talk about here in just a moment, and many more. So a few things. One, until people get their Chromes updated, transition them to a different browser, whether it be Brave, whether it be Edge, anything or something. I know that some work can only be done in Chrome. Limit that work on Chrome. And also, one of the ways they take advantage of these websites and of this, one way they take advantage of this flaw is by sending you to a malicious website that then essentially takes over remote code execution. So one other way, if you can't ignore Chrome, if you've got to use Chrome, is to really be careful what websites you go to and ensure you're going to only trusted websites until you're able to update and address this 0-day flaw. Here's another interesting story. Cyber criminals are hiding credit card data from compromised stores in a JPEG file on that company's website. So this is a very sneaky way to steal payment card data. They've obviously identified, so Magecart's attacks, I've been talking about it now for 2.5 years, literally 2.5 years. Essentially targets online e-commerce shops. So think of a lot of e-commerce shops are not owned by conglomerates. A lot of them are owned by people. It's a side hustle. For some of them, it's a new business. They go to Magento, they go to WordPress, they go to Shopify, WooCommerce, a bunch of these websites. They set it up because it's a template. They upload their items and they start spending money on marketing to get people to buy off their websites. And that's great because during COVID, that was a way for us to support local small business who could not open because of restrictions. However, one of the things is skimming credit card data. So it used to be that they would skim the credit card data and then send it to a command and control server, right? Sounds fairly logical. However, now what they're doing is they've realized that we're onto that, meaning from a defense perspective, we realize and we're looking for it. So now what they're doing is they're taking all the data, they're storing it in a JPEG image, and then at one point or another, they're exfiltrating the JPEG image, which doesn't raise any alarms because it's a JPEG. It could be something very simple. So you can see here on Bleeping Computer kind of the know-how of how they did this, which is really, really interesting. And there are some methods of monitoring it and detecting any changes or modifications, any files being added to your website database. So you want to check that as well. Even if you're not a computer geek, you should be able to do that. But it's an interesting, it's fascinating how creative these guys can get. So here's a story I'm torn about. Swiss police raided the house of Tilly Kottmann, who's a cybersecurity researcher and white hat hacker, after last week the gentleman over in Switzerland, among with a group of other folks, several have been arrested in the States as well, were essentially hacked Verkada's system to talk about essentially mass surveillance, to bring attention to the fact that there's a lot of mass surveillance and, these devices are fairly easy to hack into. So his house was raided, and I'm unaware that he's been arrested, but nonetheless, I'm kind of torn about this. Should have they raided the home of this person? Should they have reached out to these white hat hackers who really aren't doing this out of malicious, but really trying to raise awareness and have a conversation with them? I'm torn. I don't know how I feel about this yet. I have not formed an opinion. I'd be curious in the comments if you folks let me know what you think about that as well. Interesting story nonetheless. We covered it last week, and I think it's worth some time. And for a final story, Microsoft ships a one-click mitigation tool for Microsoft Exchange attack. So the Exchange on-premise mitigation tool, which is available on the GitHub page, which is github.com/Microsoft/CSS-exchange-tree-main-security is the webpage on GitHub, or you can look at CSS Exchange on GitHub. There's a new EOMT mitigation tool aimed at companies without a dedicated security or IT teams to manage patching and post-incident forensics. Microsoft said the tool has been tested on Exchange servers from 2013, 16, and 19 deployments, and is meant to be an interim mitigation for customers who are unfamiliar with the patch update process and who have not yet applied the on-premise Exchange update. Microsoft's doing a lot of very good things in handling this. Number one, they're creating all these different tools. They're addressing every customer from enterprise to the smallest business, people with or without expertise. The latest list is to download it, run it on the Exchange server, follow the more detailed guidance to ensure that it's done. Security Week had put together a list of resources to help incident response teams and IT admins respond to this, from advisories from CISA to some free tools from other cybersecurity vendors, are all available on Security Week's website. Also, you can find the link on our website at cyberhubpodcast.com. Very, very kind of well done by Microsoft here. Not kind of, they did a really good job of just really communicating this, keeping things out in the open, and ensuring that people are addressing it. Again, on the GitHub page, you can see all the information. They also have all the details of what you need to do in order to ensure that you mitigate this risk if you're a business without an IT team or don't have an IT team, etc. You can get it done fairly simply according to this. So again, that's over on GitHub as well. So that's it for our Practitioner Brief today. Again, tomorrow, March 17th, you don't want to miss it. The CISO Conversation webinar with Chris Roberts, Gray Meyer-Gleaves, and Nick Sorensen. We're going to be talking about securing the supply chain, creating partnerships and transparency. Really, this isn't it's going to be an awesome conversation. You really don't want to miss it. Make sure to subscribe. The link is in the show notes and in the description. We'll be back tomorrow morning again with another Practitioner Brief. Thanks so much for watching. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until then, folks, stay healthy and stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.